a quorum and we'll move forward. We're going to move to 4A, resolutions, and I'm going to read the resolution. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, authorizing leashed dogs in certain parks, providing for regulation and enforcement, providing for an effective date requested by City Council. And I believe this one there's staff comments and amendments, is there not? Am I wrong or right?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there are amendments. We have removed Troy Moody Park and Young Park based on citizen input onto both of those parks. And so you have a copy of the amendment in front of you. I believe the city clerk has distributed those. Mm-hmm. And that's what we would be recommending, is that it would be McWilliams Park excluding restrooms, McWilliams Park boat ramp and boat trailer parking area excluding the River House, Riverside north of Dahlia excluding the restrooms, Riverside Park boat ramp and boat trailer parking area, and Royal Palm Point Park excluding the splash fountain, restrooms, and dock area.
Before we move forward to public hearing, Ms. Graves, is this, you worked on this more closely and I've been following your lead. Is this acceptable, the change?
I worked on this at the request of council that we look at putting dogs, allowing dogs to be leashed in different parks. I think that this allows, people are already bringing their dogs to these parks, especially for events under the oaks. There are lots of dogs at all of these, and so now this allows that to go on legally, and we can provide better facilities to allow dogs to be there. I think that this is a good start to kind of answering to the community to make ourselves more dog friendly, and these areas are acceptable to both the recreation department, citizens, and staff. So,
all right. Do you want to move council comments or public hearing? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. Connors Graves would please explain to me the rationale between not allowing the dogs in the bathroom, because I guess I think if you have an elderly person walking their dog at a park and they need to use a facility, certainly the dogs would be more secure and safer with their owner than tied up outside.
The main reason is a confined space where you have dogs and you have people there. It's the same, it rings true of putting it around a playground area where you have activities, but you go into a restroom, it's a confined space. If the dog should get out of control, then you'd have people, citizens in there. The other is dogs sometimes would have a tendency to mess in a restroom, and owners may or may not clean up afterwards, and again, that's a confined area in which people will be using in the general public access.
And also just for hygiene, you really don't want an animal in a restroom. So,
all right, I'll open it to public comment, please. Mr. Moocher, come forward and tell us where you live and all that sort of thing.
Mark Moocher, 617 Indian Lilac Road in the city. I have occasion to see dogs all over the city, all over the beach, all over the dog park, and a lot of them are unleashed. They're not unleashed. They're unleashed in the areas like close to the road and Bob Summers Park, not just in the back where I think they're still supposed to be limited to. They're all over, and I guess my question was, and it applies when they're not allowed as well as when they are allowed, but how are we going to handle enforcement?
It's similar enforcement.
The pickup and that kind of stuff.
Similar enforcement as we have now, which is, there's no question it's very difficult to run out and chase people down who are walking their dogs. But the police department obviously is empowered. If we get complaints, our code enforcement will also go out. And we really have not had too many problems, but you're right. If I have personally seen dogs on beach. I have actually seen someone having an alcoholic beverage on the beach, and we have a big sign that says that too. And so there are code enforcement issues. But what this does is gives us the authority to recognize where dogs on leashes can be walked. And what we've tried to do is identify areas which have most of those. We even have a provision in here that if, for example, under the Oaks, when they get their license or permit, they do not want animals, they can put that in, and we would enforce that as part of the code. And so it's an issue, Mark, that we do have dogs that are all over town, and we have dogs that are walking in areas right now. And I'm not sure by removing Troy Moody Park that you will never see a dog in Troy Moody Park. But if there's a dog incident, we will understand who the violator is under these codes.
Mm-hmm. Well, my first reaction when you said it'd be the same enforcement as we have now was, you mean none? Because I'm sure there is some, but I'm not aware of any. And are you saying that the police will be informed to watch out for these kind of things now? Because we can't expect the code enforcement people to do this proactively, but the police are patrolling all the time, of course.
Yes, sir, and it's my understanding, historically speaking, the police have stopped and advised people of violation of their dogs being in parks.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment on this? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Further counsel?
There is gentleman. Did wanted to speak
Oh, I'm sorry.
earlier.
I'm sorry. Didn't see you.
My name is Ralph Goldman. I live in the city. It's more of clarification. I read in the paper and communicated that there was a question about the referred to as the dog park, which is down by the Vero Beach marina area. And that was going to be discussed as to whether that was going to be made a dog park or not. Now, am I in the wrong pew at the wrong time?
I think you're in the right church. The missile has not been given out yet. We are negotiating a lease with folks to establish that dog exercise area under a leash. The council has passed a resolution, however, that has identified that area near the marina as a dog exercise area.
Now, did I hear you correctly say under leash?
No, it's under lease.
Under lease?
Lease, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I address that issue? It's not appropriate at this time. Have you already made your determination?
No, sir, we have not brought a lease forward for council consideration. That'll be coming in the near future.
So you have basically said you are going to negotiate a lease, which I assume means that you are going to let a lease take place if you agree the way it's written?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Yeah, it's in drafting right now in my office.
All right. Has there been an opportunity to address people who are not in favor of that?
Yes, sir, we've had several discussions. We've had public meetings with the Recreation Commission, and we've had quite a bit of conversation here in the City Council. As a matter of fact, we spent probably 3 hours at one meeting in the discussions of not only the dog exercise area, but the changing of the zoning to park there, as well as the leash dogs. So we have had extensive conversation.
Right.
But as a citizen, obviously you can make your comments
Okay. Well, am I correct in my what I've heard, that you're going to lease the space for a nominal sum? What I've heard is $1 a year on potentially a 20-year lease. Is that accurate information?
No, sir. Those terms and conditions have not been worked out. I personally have not had a $1 a year lease. It may be $25, but the fact of the matter is the intention is it would be a nominal lease payment, and for a private group to come in, and it would be open to the public. Anyone with any dog would be allowed, assuming the dog is under control and not a vicious animal, and had shots and all the qualifications. But anybody in the area would be able to bring a dog to this exercise area under the lease that we are envisioning that would take place. The responsibility of maintenance, the insurance liability would be shifted to whoever that group is that would be operating it.
I see.
The dog exercise area.
Okay.
I don't believe the 20-year also is accurate of what the directions he has. But Jamie, you can comment on it.
No, but at least once it is drafted, we'll be coming before council, Mr. Goldman, and you certainly will have an opportunity to come back to council and make your comments known.
Well, my concern is not that you have a park for the dogs. Every place I've lived, they've had that. but it appears to me that the fiduciary responsibility, or the term that you actually used this morning, financial analysis, what you're talking in terms of, I don't think that anybody who looked at it financially would think that this land would be suitable for that type of use because of its economic impact and really what it's worth to the city as a piece of property. And you'd be actually, giving away a very valuable asset without getting any numeration financially in return. So I couldn't understand why I'd even consider doing it, at least the whole parcel. You don't need 17 acres, or you don't need more than 2 acres to have a viable dog place. And if you go down there today, talk about people not having their dogs on leash. At that area, nobody has a dog on a leash, and they're certainly not reprimanded for it. And it's more of just a gathering place for people that have dogs. If you go down there today, you'll see 20 or 30 seats, people that just leave their chairs down there. So it's a social gathering. There's always more chairs than there are dogs. So I'm really concerned that your fiduciary responsibility of taking such a valuable asset and turning it over to anybody at the numbers that I've heard, you're not really doing the city any favors.
Just a couple of comments for clarification. As a dog exercise area, a leash is not required. So those dogs do not have to be under leash control. The ordinance that we're talking about are parks where you have to have a leash.
I understand that.
So it's a dog.
Is that an area where you do not have to have a dog now?
Do not have to have a leash. Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir.
In the
This is
whole
dog
17 acres.
That is correct. It's identified as the dog exercise area. The second thing is there is a value, and I've seen anything from $4 to $7 million, but there's a caveat to that. That parcel of land is in the charter. We could not sell, develop, other than for parks, cultural, or civic activities without a referendum of the citizens. So therefore, that caveat makes diminishes sort of the value. The second thing is, or the third thing, I guess, the lease that we will be negotiating on the use of that will have out clauses for the city. Because if we needed the property back for a city purpose of any type, or if for some reason there was a referendum held to remove it from the charter, then we would have an out clause. So we anticipate, and I believe the city attorney and I will be negotiating that we have that out clause because it is a city asset. And typically speaking, most of our leases have those out clauses for us to do it. Another item that we also anticipate is that we use that as a staging area sometimes during hurricanes. We will have that access that will be provided to the city, that if we have to do any type of storage of material or setting up, that the city would have the right to go in and use the property. This is not going to be a lease that they have total control, but it will be a lease that if they're having animals out there under their preview, they will have the liability exposure, they will have the maintenance and operation of the facility.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Mosher.
Mark Mucher again. I guess this was a kind of a separate issue of why I got up before, but Mr. City Attorney, it was my understanding that the designated dog exercise area was the rear portion of McWilliams Park, not up to and including the street or the canal or anything else. And you can answer that if you want, or you can wait. But I understand that the direction that was given to the city manager was that a dog exercise area would be a good thing, and this group wants to do something in that direction. And so he was given the direction, and this wasn't much of a direction, I didn't think, to not only negotiate a lease, but also look at alternative locations. And I guess the alternative locations thing is out now. I'm just hearing that for the first time. I mean, I don't know if I've ever gotten up here and said this, but I like the area across from the cemetery looks like a great place for dogs for me. And the dogs don't care if it's waterfront. I don't know if the dog owners do or not unless they live in the immediate area. But then the further thing is how we got from that rear area close to the mangroves and away from the road into pretty much every square foot of that park being fenced in. I guess that maybe has something to do with an area for small dogs and an area for big dogs and maybe an area for medium dogs or brown dogs or white dogs. I don't know, but I just don't think it's necessary to give every square foot of that land to those people for, I don't see a difference between $1 a year and $25 a year.
Mr. Butcher,
Excuse me?
These comments, when we actually debate it, are going to be appropriate. Go on with them now, but I'm just saying the thrust of them is going to be when we
Well, but I
look
think
at
we're
that
going,
No, that's
from
okay.
this point
Go
on,
ahead.
we're moving forward towards a lease of, I understand now to be that location and that entire location. And I don't know that y'all have given that specific direction. If you want to do that, go ahead. But that's not.
I was just trying to bring it back to the issue at hand. That's all.
It's also a land use issue, and as far as I know, it still hasn't. There has been no mention of sending it to planning and zoning. I'd love to talk about it there too. But thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Mayor, if you like, I can give you the description of the area that the council had designated, and
Well,
it does encompass the entire area there.
Yes, I understand that. I would rather move. I was hoping to get the meeting done before noon, quite frankly. We have other topics to cover, and this is a germane topic. These comments are germane, but I think they should come forward when you bring it forward. That's my opinion, but it's subject to the will of council.
Mr. Mayor, to get back on this topic, I just wanted to confirm with Mr. O'Connor that if we do open up these areas, that we will be putting bags and additional bags and disposal areas for the dogs and around the.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
We're back to 4A, and I think the dialogue was worthwhile, and it should move forward at the appropriate time. Are there any more comments on 4A specifically? In other words, leash dogs within the specific areas?
Move for approval.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Just takes
All
the roll
opposed?
call.
Roll call.
Oh, roll call. I'm sorry.
Mrs. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. All right, we're going to move to 5A, first readings. These are by title for ordinances and resolutions that require a future public hearing. 5A reads as follows: an ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 58, Personnel and Retirement, Article 2, Division 4 and 5 of the Code of the Ordinances of the City of Vero Beach to provide for Internal Revenue Code compliance, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date requested by the Police Pension Board's staff. Comments, please.
This is really in conformance with the future laws, we're being told, that will be promulgated by the IRS in order to make sure that the pension plan is in conformance with that. We have sent a copy of this to our attorney that is handling the pension program. He has not had any comments back to us at this point.
Mr. O'Connor, excuse me, did you say future laws? I thought this was current laws with IRS that we're trying to conform to.
Adopted.
They are, but I
Thank
think
you.
there's
I just think it's
codification
important.
it's codification, though, of how enforcement.
And one other question,
Go ahead.
sorry, Mr. Mayor.
By all means.
Just wanted to confirm that we see no cost impact of these changes to our current plan.
No, ma'am, but
Yeah, the only thing we received was the impact statement from the boards, and maybe Mr. Pusher can elaborate from the Police Pension Board. This is their obviously their ordinance, and this is first reading. We'll still have to go to a public hearing.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Council members.
Dave Pusher, Chairman, Police Pension Board. Like the manager said, that this is IRS language that we have to put in. We don't have a choice about it. To remain a qualified plan, we have to have it. We've delayed it several months waiting for them to determine what they're going to do with it. And we're at this point now, we have to codify it in the ordinance.
Any questions? Thank you, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Well, any public comment
Public
first?
hearing, February 18th.
Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, Mr. Kramer.
Motion to approve for second hearing on the 18th.
Second.
Mrs. Bach?
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. We move on to 5B, an ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending Section 2-102, 2-105, and 2-106 in Article 3, Commissions and Boards of Chapter 2, Administration of the Code of the City of Vero Beach, relating to the City Commission and Boards, providing for a transition and severability, providing for an effective date requested by the City Council, and this is a first reading, even though it's been dealt with before. Right, Wayne? I think I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, basically what it does, we set out that there would be 7 members. And of those 7 members, at least one gets appointed by the town of Indian River Shores. That leaves 6 members, of which the council had indicated they want 5 appointed by each individual council member. That leaves the 6th member to be appointed by the city council as a body. The general rule would apply unless you specify otherwise, the general rule being that a majority of boards and commissions are city residents. That would mean 4 of the 7 would still need to be city council residents or city residents. And I looked at, saying, just a majority of the 6 would need to be city residents, but you still end up with the number 4. The only way to lessen that would be to say that the 5 appointed by the city council would need to be residents of the city, which would leave it with 3, and then 4 wouldn't have to be city residents. So it's your pleasure.
Mr. Kramer, would you like to comment?
Well, I brought this forward initially, and it's kind of changed to how some of the other members wanted to see it.
Do we want to open it to public comment first, or do you want to council? I don't care.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a few questions for City Attorney on the drafting of this.
Move forward, please.
Thank you. Mr. Comet, I guess, do you explain the second whereas, which reads, the City Council finds that individual council member appointment of members to the Utility Commission will serve to provide a more representative and streamlined method of conducting business of the Utilities Commission.
I actually stole that from our last resolution, our last ordinance when this was adopted.
I don't believe that's appropriate for this resolution.
Well, if the council wants to strike it, it certainly can.
Why would it not be appropriate?
Because first of all, it is not more representative of our utility customers, nor are you going from 5 to 7. How is that streamlining the method of conducting the business?
Well, I think you need to clarify representative. If you're talking about representative of council members, where we've come from, this is much more representative of council members.
I mean, council member has been designating all our commission members by full council vote, Mr. Kramer. So, I mean, I don't see how you can justify this.
That's not true. Our finance commission, we have individual appointees. You appointed everybody on that utilities commission. I mean, how is that representative?
No, sir, I did not appoint everybody on that utility commission.
You showed up 5 minutes before there and you gave a list.
It was a council vote. And I'm sorry if you think a 3-2 council vote is not fair, but that is how the system works.
Well, how did the other people know what was going to be on that list?
I do not know if they knew. They voted what they saw. They had the same opportunity that you did. So
we didn't have an opportunity to interview those people. We had no idea what was going to happen. You just showed up 5 minutes before the list. I mean, I think that's a sunshine law violation. I mean, give us the opportunity at least to interview the people.
Mr. Kramer, all the council members were given the same opportunity to vote, and I'm sorry you just have sour grapes that the vote didn't go your way. However, I still object to this whereas clause, that I do not feel like it's justified.
Well, maybe we should have Mr. Winger just show up with his appointees 5 minutes before the meeting, and whoever he picks, we'll just agree with.
That is certainly his right to be able to do it, as all members on our commission serve at the pleasure of the council.
Well, some council members more than others.
So we're still going to vote on the at-large candidate as a council, as a majority. I mean, I understand where both of you are coming from, but I think in the interest of where we're at, we should try and move forward on this.
Yeah, I agree. I understand where both of you are at too, but I think we should move forward. And I guess at some point we need to open a public comment, though. And then we'll come back.
Okay.
And this is first reading. You can or you don't
Mr. And I
to
still have one more
comment.
question on a following
Okay, go ahead.
whereas
By all
comment.
means.
Sorry, on page 2. It says, whereas the City Council finds that the amendments provided for in this ordinance are in the public interest and that they will serve to promote and improve efficiency and representation in the operation of city government. Once again, I'd like that statement to be justified because I do not agree.
You don't agree with promoting efficiency in the...
I don't believe that this particular resolution improves efficiency or representation for our utilities commission, our utilities customers.
Well, is this board serve at the pleasure of the customers or at the city council? Which is it?
According to our code, the board serves at the pleasure of city council.
Okay. So the representation is pointed towards city council. If you want to change it so that this is the representation of the ratepayers, okay, I would understand that. But I thought we were looking at representation of city council at the pleasure of city council.
Well, you know, this asset is owned by the city taxpayers, so I'm not at all interested in ratepayers. I mean, I am.
I'm sure in Indian River Shores,
no, I'm
60% of your customers
well,
would be delighted
Let
to
me
hear
clarify
that.
my comment. I'm interested in ratepayers, but I'm interested in the people who own the utility, which are the taxpayers of Vero Beach. I'm very interested in ratepayers, which is why I suggested to having 3 county people rather than 2. And I'm very interested in Indian River Shores. I have been all along. So I hope my comment comes through clearly. But I do think that the people that own the utility have to control it. That's my opinion.
May I say something?
Absolutely.
I think this idea of city versus county ratepayers, I don't know anyone in the city who would prefer a higher bill than someone living in the county who would prefer a higher bill. So I think this idea that there's this dividing line that somehow more people prefer higher bills than others is kind of irrelevant in the fact that the idea is to represent everybody and everyone wants to pay less. So I don't know that living in the city or living in the county means that I don't see a difference there. I think everyone is interested in how to make this work for the best interest of everybody, to have lower bills, to finish this sale, to move forward. I think that we're kind of belaboring a point. Like, it's just, we need to just move forward on this. I don't think dragging this out again, considering that it's coming forward again for more public comment in a public hearing, is necessarily the time or place.
Once again, it's just the distinction between out of city customers not having a voice, not having the ability to vote for city council, Ms. Gray. So it's just trying to give them some forum to be able to bring their concerns forward.
I understand your comment and realize I'm trying to appoint a county resident to this utility commission because I think she's the best qualified. So, I mean, I think she's better qualified than anyone I can think of. Mr. Mucher, I think you want to comment, and I think we gotten to the point we need that.
I'm going to keep this short. Mark Mucher again. I think it's very significant that we start taking closer looks at these whereases. I don't know whether the part after the whereases is new or not, but it says, you know, the above whereases are considered to be an integral part of the ordinance or whatever it says. But possible solution would be that if you want to put in the whereas this is more representative, then just say more representative of the council, of the individual council members, or more representative of the ratepayers, or whichever way you want to say it. I think you need to pin it down and make it accurate. I agree that I don't think that one method or another of appointing these board members is more efficient. And so I don't know how that got in there. And it sounds like we're throwing in whereas clauses because that's the way we've always done it, or it's boilerplate. So especially considering the little paragraph after the whereases that says these are an integral part of the intention of the ordinance, the whereases need to be looked at more carefully and be clear and agreed by, the three of you that vote on it or pass it. So thank you.
Thanks for your comments. I think they were useful.
Mayor, if I could interject one suggestion.
Absolutely.
You could opt out of the general provision that says a majority of commission and board members have to be city residents. In other words, you would just say in this ordinance, in this section of the code, that provision of the code does not apply, and just take out that requirement, and then you can appoint whoever you want, as long as they're at least live in the county and within your service territory.
Thank you.
Further public comment?
Hello, council members. The appointment by individual council members to the both the utility and the finance commission, I think, is important, and elections do have consequences, and the flavor of the board will be affected by a change in city council, and that's not just a ballot, here it is, vote on these 5 people, take it or leave it. That is individual council members making decisions about who should be on, and I think that it's important that the stakeholders, the city residents that own the utility, have a majority on that board. The idea that a county resident is the only one qualified to sit on the board is ridiculous. There's plenty of city council or city residents that would make effective board members, as long as they don't call BS what it is and then get removed by people who don't like to hear the truth. But the idea that a vote of the council, just because someone doesn't like it, I mean, I understand that. You don't like you lost the vote. I understand that. But with that in mind, and then I look at a recent vote of the city council for the rail commission, apparently your vote doesn't mean anything. Because you voted, I've got the ballots, you voted in a certain way, and somebody, somewhere along the line, after you voted, decided that Scott Stradley couldn't be a regular member, that he was going to be an alternate. Nowhere on your ballot. Nowhere in the discussion during the meeting. Was that, I don't know how that happened, but somebody, staff, apparently changed things up, and one guy you voted on, staff said, nah, doesn't make any difference that you voted him on. We're moving him off. And this council just sits there and allows those kinds of changes to be made to an advisory commission without question, without pause, and I don't get it.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Further comment? I think it's a useful subject, so.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All
It
right.
needs a second hearing for February 18th, Mr. Mayor, and not approval.
Second, the motion is specifically to have a second hearing on February 18th. Correct?
Correct.
Well, that Mr. Kramer has to amend the
Yes.
motion, yeah.
Do you amend accordingly?
Well, accordingly, yes.
Second.
Mrs. Bach?
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Ms. Turner?
No.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes.
Passes 3-2.
3 to
3 to 1. That's
3 to 1. I'm sorry. Okay. We're moved to 5C, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, repealing previously adopted water and sewer rates charged in those certain unincorporated areas of Indian River County located within the city's water, sewer, and utility service area, adopting and amending water and sewer rate structures and charges for such areas and providing for an effective date requested by the City Council. And it says amended water, so I get it read into the record properly. Staff comment, please.
Yes, in our discussions that we had pertaining to the franchise agreement, one of the major issues was having county rates in the county areas. And so this is an effort to try to address that, to sort of get that issue off the table. And what that does is frees up the time, in my opinion, that we can negotiate a franchise agreement which doesn't expire until March of 2017. But it addresses, again, the big issue. Now, just so everybody understands, this is going to have a different impact on different people. The smaller users, customers, will see a decrease. Somebody like, for example, the hospital, that is going to be a substantial impact on their water consumption because they are a major user. I mentioned this to the county administrator, and he said that in their research, the water profile of the hospital obviously fits into their higher tier costing of water, so that will be an impact. The other things that we need to really address, because this is going to be something that will come back to you, and I understand that the county may be discussing this morning themselves, and this is on the franchise agreement and how it affects. One of the issues that keeps being discussed is the county would like to have the Indian River Shores agreement mirror theirs. It's two different animals. Number one, Indian River Shores actually owned and operated some of that system there. So they had ownership rights, and which we did concede. Obviously, those that we owned and operate, we retained as our assets. But I think that's going to be a very distinctive difference between the 2 points of discussion and how that works. The other is when the petition by the county to put us under the Public Service Commission. I think in a new franchise agreement, we need to make note that if we agree, and that's a big if, to the county rates and being adjusted, if you come under the Public Service Commission, rate structure is within their jurisdiction. So the Public Service Commission could come in and say this rate structure is not fair to a certain class, and we would have to have the flexibility in order to be able to change that rate structure. And so we would have to have, in my concept is we'd have a clause in there that says if the City of Vero Beach in any form or fashion comes under the Public Service Commission, it would invalidate any rate discussions or considerations in the franchise, because it would obviously put us into a different class, but we would need to do that. Another thing in the franchise agreement, in our discussions, there is a provision that says this goes and I guess supersedes any other agreements. I think it's very important that we have recognition of the 1989 agreement. That established the permanent territorial standards, and I know there's a lot of discussion and debate, but I think in the franchise agreement we need to give validation to that, because that is the most recent and current agreement that we've had, and at the same time we built our structure and we also built our business model contingent on that 1989 agreement, and I think we need to talk about that as we move forward. Another issue that we have had, and it stands out, is the value if we do have an evaluation and we sell to the county, and that could happen any time. If the county makes an offer to purchase and the city council at any time determines that's the best interest of the city, that sale could go through with or without a franchise agreement. But I think we need to have a clause in a franchise agreement that acknowledges a going concern value. If we do an appraisal, it's not just a piece of pipe that's down in the ground that has been in there for 30 years and maintained by the city, but the going concern, the fact that we have built-in customers and we built that sort of a franchise area, that it would be, something we need to address. And just to throw out as a concept, and assuming that the county is discussing this, and I know they will be, an easy solution is we just adopt the existing franchise agreement and just extend it for another 30 years. But those are just ideas, because I realize that those questions will be coming to the city attorney and myself. And the way that it worked this last time, we had our discussions, and then the county commission decided that they couldn't handle our discussions and wanted to go directly to you, and it may come back. But just food for thought as we go forward. I think the adoption of these rates is a fair thing to do for the customers, because we've heard over and over from the county that they would like to have county rates in the county areas. And this will apply not only to the South Beach, but it also applies to the customers outside the city, in and around the hospital area, and to the west of town.
Jim, I'd like to move ahead with the rates, the improved rates for the county customers as soon as we can. But having listened to that dialogue, what's the effect of 5C here? I mean, if we move forward with 5C as it is, or are you wanting to change 5C? I don't understand.
No, sir, I do not want to change 5C. I think moving it ahead as it is in the format, I just bring those other issues up because this rate structure issue is a part of a bigger picture, which is the franchise agreement itself.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. Do we want council comment first, or would we like public comment? I'm open to either.
Public comment.
Public comment, then. Would anyone like to come forward? I don't see anybody, so council comment, please. Mrs. Turner?
Yes, I would obviously had some questions once again on the economics of this, and I understand that the attachment that we have to our resolution here for information is a study that was done by GAI.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
And what is the impact of us dropping the 10% equalization charge?
That's part of this. As it shows, our revenue stream will increase about 2.58%. Now, obviously, wet season, dry season asphyxiates with what that is, but this takes into consideration removal of the 10% surcharge that we have and imposing the 6% equalization charge.
So we currently have an equalization and we're going to drop that to 6? Is that what?
No, we have a 10% surcharge, and we're dropping that to 6, but we're changing the rate structure.
10% is a function of a state statute that says you can charge a surcharge to make your rates outside meet.
Outside, because of the outside not paying city taxes.
Right. They're not paying the 10%.
So that's called I'm just getting confused here with the terminology, Mr. Coates. So I just want to make sure it's
One
straight.
is a surcharge, the other is equalization charge.
And the equalization charge is a function of the county's rates.
Correct. It's in their rate structure.
They charge it in Sebastian, for example.
And Orchid Island.
Okay. So what we're ending up with then is comparable rate structure for what the county would charge Sebastian?
Yes, ma'am. Exactly what the
Good
county
point.
is charging the city of Sebastian in their agreement.
That's good questions. I have a question. You brought up the impact on the hospital. Is there any way to qualify the hospital differently or set them in a different structure at all, or is this going to really negatively impact their? I mean, I'm just not sure. I know they're having a tough time.
Jim, can I comment on that? I was part of the group that was behind having the optimization of the water sewer done, and I was a big supporter of it, rightly or wrongly. I think rightly, in my opinion. And I think the city's done an excellent job of implementing, Jim, the various suggestions. One of the things I learned about rates and that whole dialogue, which took a year or two, the rate structures, I mean, they're two different systems completely, and any meddling with the rate structure has really bad effects. It's either you go with our system or you go with the county system. I just don't think you can dabble in it. It is what it is. The county has the rates they have. The effect of what we've heard from ratepayers outside the city is they want the county rates. And I just don't think there's anything you can do about it. That's just my opinion. What do you think, Jim?
Mr. Mayor, it's like Cindy Lawson and I would tell you on any given day, revenues have to exceed expenditures. And under the county rates, they're taking revenues from a different class than we inside the city take. If we adopted, for example, the county rates inside the city, it would be a virtually break even based on the GAI study, but you would shift the cost from a low-end user to the hotels, as an example.
Mr. Mayor, if I might say that certainly the county rates are created to increase with the usage of water, therefore to encourage conservation. And I mean, I think that's the bottom line,
right,
is that you want to conserve water consumption.
There's only so much conservation a hospital can do, though. I was questioning because I know that they're having a difficult time right now.
A lot of the philosophy between the two different rate structures, in our particular case, ours is an economy of scale rate structure. Mm-hmm. It takes me the same price to deliver you 5,000 gallons as it would 10,000 gallons. So I give you credit for using the economy of scale. In the counties, if they have to build additional capacity for you to have 10,000 gallons, and they're charging you for that additional capacity. Both of them are very legitimate ways of doing billing, and they're used throughout the state of Florida and probably throughout the country in a similar fashion. But again, when you make decisions, there's going to be winners and losers, depending.
And we really made the decision regarding city residents that we did not want to get involved in winners and losers for obvious reasons. In this particular case, we're being asked to do something, and it's either one system or the other. That's how it is. And what Mrs. Turner said is correct. The county's idea is to encourage conservation. Our idea is entirely different. They're two different systems, and you can't get halfway between them. There's no way of doing it.
I would move for a second hearing on February the 18th.
I'll second
it. Mrs. Vach, the second of Miss Graves stands, please.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. We move to city clerk's matters. Mrs. Vach?
My first item is summer council meetings. I've talked to a couple council members that have asked me what our summer schedule looked like. And in the past, we've always canceled our first meeting in July and first meeting in August. And just want to know if that is what council's wishes are this year. I know that some of the council members are planning their vacations.
I'd be in favor of it.
I have no problem with it. Mrs. Turner?
No, I think you said that canceling the July 1st and the August 5th meeting, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
For the public. And yeah, certainly I think if we do get in a bind with budget preparations and require another hearing, but for planning purposes, I would agree.
I agree.
Thank you.
You have consensus.
Okay, thank you. And the next item was just the annual reports presented by all of your commission and boards. Each of the commission and boards looks like they worked really hard this year. The chairman of each of the commissions have said if you have any questions that they would be glad to answer them. But this is just for your review.
Mr. Mayor, if I might just add a few comments. First of all, this is the great book that we received from all our commissions and their final reports. I wanted to thank all our volunteers who serve on these boards. I mean, there have been hours and hours of work. Just looking at some of the commissions that have had, really high meetings. Of course, the Veteran Memorial Island with 11, P&Z with 10, Finance Commission with 11 meetings, and Recreation. These are very, very active commissions, and I think we owe them a lot of gratitude for their time.
I second that.
No question about that, and you know nothing about government, and I think we're somewhat blessed here in Vero Beach of having a lot of people step forward and be interested in our government. And it's something that's needed countrywide, and we encourage more of it, really. We do have some vacancies on some of the commissions. We will have we have further elections coming up in years ahead, and we encourage participation. I think it's all important. You're absolutely correct, Ms. Turner. Mrs. Vach. I guess nothing else for you, so I move on to Mr. O'Connor.
Just a comment. Looking at the budget week that we'll be doing, just so you all can be thinking about it, the week that we're thinking about is July the 14th through the 18th. That encompasses the week that you would be here for a city council meeting. And so that is not in firm stone yet because we've got to check with the various different groups that do this, but that's the dates that we are talking about now, trying to make it as convenient, but at the same time, make sure at least the majority of you all are in town when we do that. So we're shooting in that area. Items I had, a review of properties for the charter protection. This is a draft document. We are still asking that we will be able to bring back the final for recommendation to the city council, but we've had several meetings with Councilwoman Graves and Ken Degg, who's the guy that's been working with us on this, but we do want to do some more modifications. You've gotten the worksheets, which really encompasses the great majority of what our thinking is, gives you the history, and also some of the recommendations that will be coming forth. We don't see too many of these recommendations changing. But if you have any questions, I know it's a pretty detailed document, and hopefully by the next council meeting, if we're at all fortunate, we'll come back with our minor modifications and present that to the council for your consideration.
Jim, I guess I only have one question, and maybe it's a question for the Press Journal or others, but how does this get out to the public, what's being considered? Because it is complex enough. I don't know how they're going to understand, really.
The only way I know, Mr. Mayor, is that it is on our website and attachments to our council minutes, obviously open as a public document for anyone who wants those. Mr. Slezak has been involved in the discussions and obviously interacts with folks in the recreation business, and we have tried to make it known. The council has had it under discussion at several public meetings, and the Press Journal and the other publications, I guess, just need to pick up on it. I'm not sure how else we can do it.
Can I make a suggestion? I've been to all of these meetings, and the presentation and the work done by Monty Falls and David has been tremendous. David has spent a lot of time working on this. It's very detailed. It takes a lot of research. I think as we get closer to what we would need to include on the referendum and then the moves we need to take, that I would suggest a public workshop to really explain what's going on so that everyone knows what they're voting on. I think that that's really important as we move forward with referendums, that the public has the opportunity to come in, ask questions, and see what's going on.
And I agree with that. One of the issues that we have is that we're going to try to make this where when you pass this, there's not going to be any questions. For example, in our code right now, up until less than a year ago, we thought that McWilliams Park was a McWilliams Park. So you all are going to be going in multiple steps to accomplish this goal. One is that you will have to establish what parks that you want to go on the ballot. The second is we'll be bringing back resolutions to actually designate names of the parks that can be identified very easily by the general public. And so then from there, you'll be going into workshops, as you indicated, Ms. Graves, that we would try to discuss in detail how the changes in the description of the park and how the names now have expanded onto what, in many cases, people already called them. Mm-hmm. And so we hope to have that really detailed. One of the little challenges is in a referendum, you can only have so many words. So you're going to adopt an ordinance, and by reference in that referendum, it's going to refer back to the ordinance. And I agree that we need to make sure that the Recreation Commission as well as the City Council are waving this ordinance around and say, this is what you're voting on, in detail. So I think that public acknowledgement, but maybe the Recreation Commission really needs to take some lead in that.
And that's fine, just so that, because when we talked about the fact of the 75 word limit to the referendum, that when we have that public workshop, people will know, okay, this was the ordinance. And just to have the opportunity, all the information out there, hopefully the press will cover this, and so the question will be answered in people's minds before they walk in the ballot.
If I could just say something, I mean, are you thinking of having the public input at that workshop?
I think mainly just because you look at this packet. Do you mind if I borrow your packet?
No, certainly.
There's so many pictures, and the pictures really help, because that was one of the questions we had is, do we provide maps? Do we provide the wording of the boundaries? Yeah. And so at the public workshop, if we can really kind of designate what it is, at least through being able to see the pictures up, I think that people just know more what they're voting on. I think it's important to.
Well, the reason I bring that up is that if you wanted to have a workshop where people could come in and give input, you have this notice that you have to have before you go to a referendum. So, and of course, people are going to be gone in the summer. So perhaps, a preliminary workshop ahead of when season ends, for changes, and if you wanted to do a workshop closer to the voting time, which is just informational only.
Well, I think some of that timeline will depend on how we move through on the different steps we have to take to the actual wording of the resolution, because if you look, we have to work on redefining the boundaries, reworking on the names, and all of this to create the package, like Mr. O'Connor was saying, for the referendum. So that will fall on us to do our jobs well and swiftly.
Okay. And at the end of the day, the citizens will have their input.
Okay.
Okay, we are still proceeding forward. We want to bring at least the preliminary document back to the council.
Thank you.
All right, Jim, move forward.
The proposal on the beach umbrellas and chair rentals, it's obviously gotten a lot of publicity. Just for clarification, the individual who did receive our recommendation, which we are still recommending that he receive the bid, obviously had some historical issues, but I checked with the city attorney and also with our purchasing agent. He has the right to bid. We have the right to award that bid based on the fact of his references, and there is no reason for exclusion based on the newspaper articles that you've had. And unless, Scott, you're planning on withdrawing your bid, I'll just go on, and you're not doing that, right?
No, sir.
Okay. And we did go to the Recreation Commission, and obviously they did make a recommendation to the City Council that we approve this package of beach umbrellas and chairs to go on the beach. And again, this is another one of our efforts. As pointed out in the cover letter from the Recreation Director, it's not a major significant amount of money, but it is additional money coming to the recreation.
Jim, I have a couple comments about this, but how do you want to proceed? It's sure you have the floor.
Any questions the council has, that's just an explanation of how we got to this point.
Well, do you want Scott to present, or do you want my questions, or what would you like?
Well, Scott, since you stood up there, you obviously have something to say. You might as well say it.
Well, if you're talking about me, Scott Cavanis, 35th Avenue, Southwest Vero Beach, Florida, I figured I should stand up.
Oh.
My history is something that I don't hide it from people. I've been advised by certain people that you shouldn't openly just go up to people that you don't know if they have your best interest or not. I know the city manager and the head of the recreation department, Rob Slezak, did know about this last year, and I'm embarrassed that this has happened in my life, but it happened a long time ago. The way I handled it in certain areas, we could get into that conversation if you would like to know more about that. I'm happy to discuss that. I did do a little write-up for you guys just so you understand where I'm at. And I'm not going to read this whole thing, but essentially the first part of this document is basically that I do view the potential of this contract as a partnership whereby together we can create a fantastic lifestyle improvement for the citizens and visitors of this great city of Vero Beach. And I do think it is an improvement. I don't think it's not something that I'm going to make a lot of money at, as Mr. O'Connor said, but I think over time, considering the duration of the proposed contract, that it would be financially viable for me to do that, and it would help me further my business venture throughout the beach area. I feel that the city has a great staff. They're dedicated professionals, including the recreation manager and his staff, the lifeguards, the city police, the park maintenance crew, of course, Harley Bentley. Basically, I think that I wouldn't want to do anything to jeopardize the quality of what's out there on the beach right now. So knowing that, you can see the quality of the gear that we have out there on a daily basis at the resorts. And we try to provide that 4-diamond service on the beach, and that's what we would like to bring to South Beach.
Well, I have two comments. The first comment is structurally. I'm ambivalent about this, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But I've told the city attorney and the city manager I would like to see the area limited, like city manager said, south of the lifeguard area or north of the lifeguard area. You know, and I don't think that imperils what you're trying to do. These umbrellas and chair rentals are relatively expensive, and I'm always cognizant. I live nearby, and quite frankly, at these rates, I'd bring my own umbrella, and I probably could afford it. But I think there should be an area in the beaches where, as it always has been, I feel like this about, we talked and we rejected, thankfully, renting the cabana units. And I think there should be an area where this moves forward and an area where it doesn't move forward. That's how I feel about it. I mean, how would I feel if I was picking grapefruit and everyone around me had these things, and I had my kids there? I don't know. I don't know whether that makes any sense to you or not, and I don't think it hurts the proposal.
No, I do agree with that, and I'm the way that we set up the beach on a daily basis, the way that it's set up right now as we're speaking, and we just did secure with the Holiday Inn Oceanside, which hopefully we'll be able to work on getting some kind of a guard area in that Sexton Plaza, which is something I'm working with the VBLA. But I think that our setups are very sparsely, and there was an individual, and I put a little note right here because I was going to bring this up. An individual talked to me yesterday, and he said, well, don't worry about local government. If we partner together, I'll have jet skis on that beach. Personally, I like that we're 10 or 12 miles from an inlet because when I'm out in the water, I personally, for my own personal preference, I don't want to hear that. I've been run over by jet skis in South Florida by young girls that had no business operating that type of watercraft. And for me, I like the concept of keeping Vero Vero. I like going out there in the morning and seeing pristine beaches. And I agree with you that there are some things that I'm doing, though. I'm going to do a discount card where it's basically be half price if you bought like 10 rentals to make it very economical for me to set up the equipment as well as for people to rent it. So it's basically like $10 a day. And there's other aspects, too, to be able to promote tourism through off-beach packages to resorts that are off-beach where they can allow their guests to have a day at the beach package. And I know I would never like to see a sea of umbrellas, and I brought that picture in here. Rob advised me against bringing that picture back here for fear of you guys just mixing the whole concept all together. But that's something that when one of the resorts in particular talked to me about that, and I mentioned it in a newspaper article, that people don't come from Miami to go to Miami. Mm-hmm. They come to Miami to come to this place, and that's how I like it personally. So.
A second comment is I have difficulty seeing this at Con Beach, having lived in Conway for quite a long while. And the beach is pretty narrow. I mean, at South Beach, quite frankly, my wife thinks it's a good idea if there was an area. And I guess we'll have to negotiate whether I'm going to carry the umbrella or not. But I have misgivings about the narrow beaches, and I just air that. One other thing I would say about this, Jim, I would personally, I don't know what the public feels about this. I've asked comments, I've had very few. I would rather that we table this today and bring it forward on the 18th rather than to give the press a time to do their job and be sure that there's general agreement to it, just as a personal
Mr.
view.
Mayor, we've got to bring a contract back for council consideration anyway, so there will be another hearing on this and public discussion. And under that terms and conditions, we will address issues such as what you brought up, either north or south of the lifeguard stand, sort of an area where you would have, but we would have to sit down with Scott and go through some of those details, but I think we've gotten, or at least I've gotten the message from you as to how you would want to make sure that we have a limitation, but at the same time, we want to make sure it's a viable business. We prefer to have somebody out there making a little bit of money that the city could share.
Thank you for listening to my comments.
Well, if I could...
Mrs. Turner?
I think Scott wanted to say something.
Oh, just very briefly, and whatever you guys decide, of course, this is... I always view my resorts as well as I would view the city as my primary customer. So whatever you decide is, of course, how it would be.
Okay. I'm just going to say, based on Scott's record with the other resorts and his performance, with those, we've had great performance records and good references with those things that I would support moving forward with a contract for these services.
Let me say this. I checked your references at least one place myself, and they were really quite good. And I believe all of us in life need second and third chances, and I think that's important. My grandfather's brother was in Moses Lake in 1934 to 1939, and he did the rest of his life. He lived an exemplary life, and he helped other people who had the same quandary. Nothing in your past, in my view, has anything to do with this, as long as you perform and as long as you perform within the law.
And just one other comment, and I do want to thank Scott, too, for all your cooperation with the VBLA, with our lifeguards, and the offer for the ATV vehicle for their use, I think is very generous. Appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Without council objection, we will bring back a contract to address this and move forward with the program.
Thank you.
And that also will include it'll be a resolution to grant a franchise, so you'll have that to consider too.
I have a quick question and a comment. I'll do my question first. How are we going to see the report, like the annual financial report of how he's doing, to know what receipt? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like to know.
He would monthly have to report to
Okay.
finance and submit his franchise fee. That goes to the city.
And when I've gone out of town to the beaches, when I'm not trucking a chair with me, if I'm going to Jacksonville, for example, I've rented the chairs and the umbrellas, and it's been really great. Now, I wouldn't do that here because I have them in my house, but I think for tourists, it provides a great service. And I know your chairs are very, they look really nice and go well. And I would like to say that I think this is a great idea. And for you, what you've done with your life, it shows that life does go on. And you can continue to just contribute and be great. And I appreciate all the work you've done on this. So,
Thank you.
We'll move forward. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, sir.
FPL update, as the council obviously has read, and you received a copy of the email that I received from Florida Power and Light, Amy Bunges, and sort of the update. I guess the key is that we are still working on options and alternatives. There may be other considerations that will have to be brought back to the city council, not in terms of cost. They understand that we can't absorb any more cost, but some modifications for your consideration. And we are looking at many of the options. The dollar amount spread is very, very large. And so we've got to some way be able to collapse that through other benefits that can be provided. And so we're still working in that area. It's as we have said many times, it's a very daunting task. I still personally believe there are answers, but it's going to take a commitment from several parties, and including the city. And some people are going to have to absorb more risk than they have at this point said that they would.
All right. Any further questions for the city manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to inquire about the Florida Inland Navigation District. I know that they'll be accepting applications for their waterway assistance program. Have we been able to identify anything, Mr. O'Connor, that might be eligible?
We have not at this point, but we are looking at those grants. As you know, we get fine grants on many of our boat ramps and stuff like that. So we do review these and take those under consideration and try to make sure, because a lot of it is matching, so we don't want to just frivolously apply for something and then match it up. But we are looking at those.
No, I guess just this deadline's April the 1st. So I just wanted to write that. Thank you.
All right. Anything further for the city manager? Then we'll move on to new business. And, of course, I have a goal of ending the meeting at noon, so this will probably be pretty quick. One of the interesting things is that we're all equal here. And whoever happens to be mayor at the time, and it changes every year pretty much, chairs the meeting, and which isn't a great pleasure, really. And
that's why you got it, Dick. That's why you got it.
And, one of the things under the Sunshine Law, I'd like to be able to ask Amelia or Mrs. Pilar or Jay or Craig how they want the meetings run, because really it's how the five of us would like meetings run. And we've run them two different ways here in the last two meetings. Today there was no comment. Actually, we used 28 minutes of the 2.5 hours with two individuals, which is okay with me if it's okay with the city council. The other meeting we used approximately the same amount with approximately the same two individuals, and there was fur and flurry. So I would like to ask each one of you, I mean, we do have rules. About 10 years ago, the rules were abandoned by a mayor who made that conscious decision. And we can either run by the rules or not run by the rules, but I would like to know what you'd like to do. One other thing, there is a form that for the general public, we have, one reason or another, I don't know that we should, but we have divided public comment into two sections. The first being if you ask a council member or any charter officer, in other words, Mrs. Vach, to be on the agenda, you can be on it for longer than the prescribed time. You have to fill in a form. And that form currently is in use, and it was actually used for this particular meeting. I don't know whether we want the form or not. Then the understanding is that if you were not on the agenda, you're supposed to limit your time to 3 minutes. I think 5 is more reasonable than 3, but it says what it says. This entire file that's put in front of you, I didn't do any of the file. Quite frankly, Mrs. Vach did a lot of it, and Wayne Comet did some of it, providing the information and with counsel from Jim. So I open it up to the floor. We can run the meetings any way you want. I just want to know how you want them run, period. And we'll do it that way, whatever that is.
Well, I actually had this discussion when I went to the Florida League of Cities municipal training to talk to see how other cities were running theirs, and they use the form that they found success with that. I think the most important thing for us is to hear from the public. Where I get concerned sometimes is when just a few people might dominate the conversation to the point where they're debating one another, and it might shut down other people coming forward who may be intimidated to enter. So I want to make sure that everyone has the chance to talk, but we do it in a way that encourages everyone. And so I think placing our code on our agenda that the public picks up, so that's this helpful reminder of kind of how the meetings go, could be helpful for people who may not understand or could kind of refresh in people's minds. This is a suggested guideline.
Mrs. Turner, your comments. Free forum.
Once again, I guess I've been comfortable with leaving it to the mayor's discretion as far as time period goes, Mr. Winger. Obviously there are people that will abuse this, and I go back to the code and talking about decorum, things that we may need to remind the public. It says any person making personal, impertinent, slanderous, obscene, profane, inflammatory, irrelevant, or immaterial remarks, or who shall become boisterous while in the council chambers, could be asked to leave the podium or to be removed. And I mean, once again, the public has an obligation, to respond in a responsible way. And if they do not, then it's certainly within the mayor's purview to say, make your point. If not, thank you very much. Please sit down.
Mr. Kramer.
Well, I would partly agree with that. I know we had a commentator today that singled out Ms. Turner. I don't know if it was taken positively or negatively, but I would like to get back to the idea that we don't single out council members but address the council as a whole. One thing to keep in mind is that, hey, we work for the people. We're here because people voted us here. They're our boss. They should be telling us what to do. I strongly agree that if a person is going to come up here and want to talk, we have a responsibility to listen to them. To what length? I hate to put that back on Mr. Winger, but the mayor does have this responsibility of running the meeting. I know when I was mayor, I did let people run long. We had a lot of energy in the community that needed to be vented and it needed to be let out. And at the end, the meetings did get shorter. However, it's going to be up to the mayor as to the rules of how long you want to let people speak.
Well, I will tend to want to go with 5 minutes, except if someone asks for more time on the form. And actually, we had an interesting thing, too, the forms that were filled in this time. One asked for 5 minutes, took 10 for what it's worth. Some of the comments were really quite good, as a matter of fact. Not always the case, probably. And the other one refused to give any time limit and had some various comments about us asking for a time. In that particular case, into the future, I would, when they come to the podium, I'd say, how many minutes do you need? And then remind them, because that individual in 2 meetings has taken 18 minutes. Some of the comments we needed to hear. Maybe we needed to hear all of them, but we needed to hear them in less time. So I guess, unless Mrs. Vach or Mr. Comet or Mr. O'Connor want to give me their counsel, I've got your answer. I'll do the best I can. I'll soldier on.
Challenge.
All right. Are there other matters to come before the February 4th City Council meeting? Seeing none, I ask for a motion to adjourn.
Oh, you got your
Yes,
individual
sir, we have
matters.
members' matters.
Oh, members' matters. I'm sorry.
He was really taking that 12 o'clock seriously.
Oh, you must have a big bet on that.
I don't have any further matters. I've had my matters.
I'll keep it short. When people drive through the downtown, I would like to just have people notice the light posts. The Main Street Vero Beach did an absolute wonderful job working with the galleries on putting up banners. A lot of the businesses spent a lot of time and effort sponsoring those banners. So just be thanking thank Main Street Vero Beach and particularly Vicki Gould for doing that. I think she did an absolutely wonderful job.
Mrs. Turner.
Thanks. I've got a long list, but I'll try to go quickly.
No,
Okay.
Your lists are always very good. They're good reminders.
Thank you. Just wanted to share the great news from the Chamber about our tourist tax that for the month of November was up 18%, and in December almost 11%. This is great. People are discovering the beautiful town of Vero Beach. We're having a chance to share that with them. So thank you. Attended the Keeping in River Beautiful luncheon. They're doing a great job in trying to encourage recycling. Many people, I know if you have to dispose of a printer, I guess their average life's around 3 years or whatever. I mean, what do you do with it? And they do have special disposal sites, recycle centers around the city that are available to you, and encourage anyone to drop by their store at the mall for some creative ideas on recycling things. Quick lagoon update. There was a very interesting group combining art and conservation at the Museum of Art. This was a great collaboration of artists from around the state and scientists thinking about how art can communicate, the cold hard facts of science. So art seems to be able to touch us all in an emotional way that, most people don't feel about numbers. So, it's a great way to see if we could work collaboratively with the art to promote this message and move forward to protecting our lagoon further. Just want to thank Rob, his crew, Public Works, and all the great people with the Garden Club for the Garden Fest over the weekend. Thank you, Mr. O'Connor, and our police force, too, for taking care of crowds. Remind everybody on Saturday that there is, back by popular demand, the 21 Hearts One Beat Band will be at Sunset Saturday on Ocean Drive. Orca is having an lecture series at the Emerson on the 27th. They will have National Geographic photographer there at 7 o'clock. Carlton Ward, contact the Emerson Center for tickets on that. Skip all that. There's the Love the Lagoon event at Harbor Branch on Friday. It will be honoring our own First Lady, Miss Amelie Loy. Once again, join the gallery stroll on Friday the 7th and check out those banners and flowers. They're lovely. The Tour de Vero bicycle race will be going on Sunday morning, on Sunday, February the 9th, kicking off at Carrabba's. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Graves.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Mine is quick. I was able to go out to the airport and meet with flight safety, and there was a recent article about them highlighting everything they do, and I just wanted to say what a great partnership we have out there with them. The economic impact of their students in our community is huge, and it has been furthered by the ability of their students to utilize the Go Line bus to shop. And they tend to do a lot of shopping. So I'm really glad that flight safety is here, and I was really impressed with the flight simulator. Kind of terrified, but it's really impressive what they're doing out there, and I'm grateful that they're here in our community. So that's it.
All right, now I can ask for a motion to adjourn.
Yes. Second.
Okay, we are staying adjourned.